Actually, only those are to be included in the members of Christ who have been baptized and profess the true faith and have not been so unfortunate as to separate themselves from the unity of the body or have been excluded by legitimate authority for grave faults committed. So in other words, if you do not accept the full true faith of the papal profession, then you are separated and you are not a member of the body, the mystical body. That is the purpose of this encyclical. And then we're going to look at Satis Cognitum saying a very similar idea. The church, founded on these principles, mindful of her office, has done nothing with greater zeal and endeavor than she has displayed in guarding the integrity of the faith. Hence she regarded as rebels and expelled from the ranks all that held any belief on any point of doctrine contrary to her own. Expelled and thus not worshiping God. The Arians, the Muslims are Arians, Montanists, Novatians, Quartodecimeans, Eutychians, they all reject Catholic doctrine, but they abandon only a portion of it, a tertian portion of it. Who does not know that they were declared banished heretics and banished from the bosom of the church? So to hold one doctrine, the next paragraph, the practice of the Catholic Church has always been, as is shown in the unanimous teaching of the fathers, that whoever would hold, that they were wont to hold as outside the Catholic communion, alien to the church. So are you worshiping, if you're outside the Catholic communion, the Catholic God? Whoever would recede in the least degree from any of her magisterial doctrines. That's Leo the 13th. So if you reject one Catholic dogma, you are no longer Catholic. Do Muslims reject any Catholic doctrine? Oh, they reject the essentials. And so they cannot be part of the mystical body, which is the only means of salvation and the only place in which God accepts his worship, the only acceptable venue of worship, according to this traditional Catholic mindset. And guess what? In the Orthodox Church, we would agree. And we still uphold the actual, I mean, it's not the papal church, but the basic idea of a closed communion church is right there. We say, now we don't agree that it's the papal sect, but we would say, yes, this proposition is actually true. Outside the Orthodox Catholic Church, if you reject any of the dogmas of the church, I don't believe in baptismal regeneration, you're not an Orthodox person anymore. You've rejected a teaching of the creed. I don't believe in the real presence in the Eucharist. I believe everything else, though. You're no longer Orthodox. It only takes one heresy, one obstinate rejection to exclude you from the faith and the communion is the members with God. Outside of the communion, there is not communion with God. God's grace can be out there and pulls people to the church, but the worship of God is not happening apart from an altar. And even the Roman Catholics shoot themselves in the foot and own themselves on this point every time they debate a Protestant, because they don't even know that Islam is even more anti-sacrificial than Protestants. Protestants believe in one sacrifice, the person of Christ at the cross. Muslims believe in no sacrifices, no altars, thus no worship of God. All the way back to Cain and Abel, God required sacrificial worship as his worship. If you don't have that, you don't have worship of God. So the very idea that hasn't even been discussed yet about why this is so wrong is the mistaken Roman Catholic intellectualism that worshiping God is assenting to propositions of the magisterium. That's not the worship of God. That's how they can say, Muslims agree with us on proposition 1 that God is omnipotent. Number 2, that God is simple, that God is one. That's not worship. That's assenting mentally to propositions. Worship and adoration is different. That only happens at an altar. So they don't even know how you worship God. That's why they don't even know that it's the angel of the Lord that is Jesus. Look at what this Roman Catholic said yesterday as a test case example. One of the larger Catholic profiles says, did God reveal himself as a Trinity to Abraham? Catholic guy, no. Every Orthodox person knows, with St. Maximus the Confessor, what the answer to this is. And every person who's heard any debates with the Muslims knows the answer to this. And the heretic Sam Shamoun himself knows this because he argued it for so long. And now he wants to join ranks with this nonsense and defend this idiocy, which is just sad. Maximus the Confessor said Abraham was taught and worshipped the Trinity. By the way, this is a doctor in the Roman Catholic Church, okay? God appeared to Abraham, who was perfect in knowledge and already possessed an intellect completely beyond matter and figurations. He, God, taught Abraham that the immaterial principle of the Trinity inheres in the principle of its unity. And for this reason, God appeared to him as three and spoke to him as one. Why is that? Because in Genesis 18, as we saw, even in the Masoretic text, we saw this yesterday, Yahweh Yehovah appeared to Abraham on the plains of Mamre. And Abraham sat up, and notice the text is intentionally telling you about what he does in terms of his eyes. And Abraham lifted up, it could have just said Abraham stood up and talked to the Lord. It says Abraham lifted up what? His eyes. His eyes. In other words, Abraham is visually seeing the Logos. This is a scandal to the Roman Catholics and to the Thomists. They literally sit here and tell you, just like Muslims and just like Arians, that it's not possible for God to be seen. But even Jews admit that it's hard for them to make sense of this. Even the Jews admit it might actually be a second principle or even God himself somehow. We saw that in the Jewish Encyclopedia yesterday on the Shekinah. The Jews admit, we don't know what to do with this glory cloud that is called glory. Perhaps it is God somehow. Other rabbis, no, that's not possible. God can't do that. Exactly, just like the Muslims and just like the Jews. So the monad of the Muslims, Christians, and the Muslims, Catholics, and Jews actually probably is the same God. He's called Satan, the one that steals, kills, and destroys. Allah is the greatest of deceivers in the Quran. And this is who the Roman Catholics think they're worshiping? The same God as that? This is how dumb these people are. One thing that would really help them is to actually know Islam. Now, Trent claimed he's an expert on Islam. Well, he would know then that Islam's Unitarianism doesn't match up to the Old Testament. Oh, but wait a minute. He didn't even know that Jesus, the first century rabbi, is the same subject as the angel of the Lord and the God of the Old Testament. He wasn't even aware of that. And I'm getting a lot of messages, many comments, hundreds and hundreds of comments. People are saying this issue of the Roman Catholics not believing that it's the theophanies that are Christ and that they're real theophanies in the Old Testament and that it's the Trinity in the Old Testament is the very thing that's making them question and leave. We had a traditional Catholic show up today at our liturgy. Now, he's already coming into the church, but he was saying that this is just too much. To say that the Muslims and Catholics worship the same God, he said that's it. He's done. This is a turning point for a lot of these people. Now, I'm not saying all the trad cats, they're not. But they're all melting down. We're getting to see it in lifetime, the meltdowns. They're losing it in lifetime because all of this is coming to the fore. Now, there's some corrupt people in the Orthodox world for sure. But I just want to remind you of the lusty eyes of supposedly trad Pope Benedict when the openly gay acrobats performed for him. Because what did Paul say in Romans 1? If you go in this direction, you get given up to vile, disgusting things. And a lot of these Roman Catholics are actually gay. They're actually in this domain. Why do you think they're Roman Catholic? This is one of the key points that Father Moses said when he first made his first videos. Well, they're just partaking of the spirit of their Big Daddy, cheering on actual gay, and this is a gay truth. I'll show you the proof of it. Watch how Benedict looks at the gay dudes. And then they beckon to him. The gay dudes all beckon to the Holy Father. Whoa. Yeah, they're gay dudes. Dyer hasn't proven that they're actually gay. You can look up you can go look it up on your own. I'm not gonna go to a bunch of damn gay links for all you gay skeptics. You can go look that up on your own. You probably already got it saved in your bookmarks anyway, a lot of you Roman Catholics. So, now you say, why are you talking about gay stuff? No, it has everything to do with it. Because what we read in Romans 1 about the gay stuff is a sign of an idolatrous reprobate mind. If you're an idolater, do you worship, love, and adore the true God? No, it's not possible. They're mutually exclusive. Because idolatry is specifically actual worship of something other than God. And one of the signs of this is this kind of wickedness. It's like Father Moses said, yes, we all have vices, we all struggle with things, but certain vices become evidence of another faith, another deity. And these are the examples of that. And I'm not just talking about people with a vice that struggle and are trying to go to the liturgy and trying to do better. I'm talking about the corrupt PDF, blackmail, satanic element throughout the Vatican and the widespread gay priesthood in the Roman Catholic Church. That's what I'm talking about. That is a sign for everyone that, yes, there could be corruption. Yes, there's bad Orthodox bishops and priests. But when you have this widespread contamination, it doesn't speak to persecution. It speaks to persecution. So I don't think Roman Catholics are grasping, and they don't, because they don't see it as, they see it as an intellectual problem. Everyone's failing to do their syllogisms properly. And if only Aristotle had reasoned properly, if only no, it's a spiritual problem. And that's what they don't understand. It's a delusion of idolatry.